Hey, welcome to the Cam and Otis Show, Clarity Part 3. And you know what, Cam? You got to have some serious clarity to do 3 shows on one word.
You're right about that.
That's a lot of clarity. That's some in-depth clarity.
Mm-hmm.
We're clearly going in depth in clarity.
Very clear clarity around here.
Yeah. And really, all joking aside, our first show on clarity was about why, how is it, what is it for, why is it important? Second show was kind of that, well, how do you get it? How do you find it? And today we're going to talk about implementation, application. Hey, I've got clarity. Okay, well, what's that mean? What do you do with it? Do you put it in your pocket and start walking down the street? Do you use it to set up something? Do you use it to make your plan? Is it part of your plan? So let's kick it off, Camden.
Yeah, for me, clarity, if I'm going through and coaching somebody through the process of how to achieve clarity and, reach that point where they have some clarity in their life and start creating that clarity. Ooh, gosh, I already said it about 4 times. Got to slow down on that. But to me, it starts off, like we talked about last week with that honest reflection. And I think the best form of that, and there's lots of different ways to go about this, is meditation. And I think for meditation, like I said, you can go about it any sort of different ways. Hell, fishing is meditative to me. I could go out there and fish and I will feel clear and calm at the end of that because I'm out there by myself with the fish, right? But it's also the literal meditation that people think of. You're sitting on the floor, crossing your arms, talking through everything in your head and going through and focusing on your breathing like that. So I think that is an important part to start at. And I think it's interesting because, just like, here's a throwback, going back to Corey Katuna, one of our first episodes, it's not always an easy thing to get started. What did she say? You'll fall asleep the first 5 times you try to meditate. But hey, it's that 6th time, it's just where you want to be. And you just keep moving forward each time like that. And what I think you find when you get in, when you start really meditating, because really what meditation really is it's conscious thought. That's the easiest way to put it, to dumb it down, take the hippie connotation away from it. It's conscious thought, right? And really all it is doing something that allows you to focus on yourself entirely. And for a lot of people like me, that's sitting on the floor, laying on the floor because my bad back, I can't sit on the floor, and breathing and focusing on my breathing. And then once I reach a point, it goes into problem solving and all these type of things. And I'll lay on the floor for an hour and a half and solve every problem I'm having right then. Now, do those solutions always last? No, not necessarily, but it gives you that clarity that you need to start moving forward past that point. And I think that's where meditation is really important, because once you get it down, it's not necessarily an hour. Every time I've done that, it's because I got some big problems that I'm facing with my company. Generally, it's 15 minutes, and it's 15 minutes in the morning, checking in with yourself, understanding, okay, how do I feel this morning? What do I want out of today? What is today going to be for me? And then getting that clarity and then moving on through your day.
I think you've touched on something I find really interesting, because it's proof that everybody has their own perspective of how to implement tools. Because I look at meditation in a different perspective. I look at meditation as training for my mind to allow me to do singular focus. So if you listen to what people talk about, they call it a practice. And the reason they call it a practice is because you continue to improve on your ability to think with clarity, to focus on things. Now, that whole other thing you were talking about is great, and that's that subconscious continuing to work to solve problems, which is another aspect that you can do with meditation. For me, I use it, and when I talk to people about that don't do meditation, the way I talk to them about it is it's practice for your mind so that you can take and do a singular focus on something. And that's a powerful thing to do. And what you're doing is you're being at peace and allowing your mind to think, which is still a great aspect and a great outcome for meditation. So don't get me wrong on this. I'm not saying this, that's the wrong way. I'm saying that what happens is, and what we've just described is, you can do the same action and have different outcomes
Mm-hmm.
because we're all different. It's going back to the clarity. Clarity for me is different than clarity for you.
Mm-hmm.
We can agree to what Webster says clarity is, or dictionary.com or whatever, right? We can all agree to that. But in the application for me and how I get clarity is that I focus on the target. And then once I have that clarity on my target, then I can dissect how to achieve that target.
Mm-hmm. I was just gonna say, I totally agree. That might have come off like you were disagreeing on that part, but the more I thought about it, to me, you're talking about practice, right? Meditation is a practice. And when I started thinking about practice, I was like, it's a muscle. Brain's a muscle. And really what you're doing is you're trying to control the movements of that muscle. Just like if we were going to go do a workout, yoga, CrossFit, whatever we're doing, we're building the muscles, training ourselves, getting that body control to go do things that we want to do. And just like to your point, what we're trying to get out of it is very different. What I work out, what my goal is for working out nowadays is very different than back when I played rugby. I'm doing similar exercises a lot of the time, but I'm looking at things completely differently and I'm applying them differently. And I think that's what you're getting with meditation is you're building those muscles up and you're building that muscle memory so that when the time comes in your life, in the rest of your life, you're ready for it. Whether it's being able to singularly focus on something and resist that twitch in the back of your mind that says, hey, what's that over there? What's that? Oh, squirrel. All those little things, that's what you're training your muscles to do there. And what I'm talking about there is literally, the more you talked about it, the same thing. My problem is I get too many projects at once and I bounce around too much. So when I sit still, I have to make myself think through every problem over and over and over again, because otherwise I'll go, I solved it. Jump on to the next thing.
Yeah. Well, and let's talk a little bit more about the application of it. So, we talked about why it's important. We talked about how to get it. And now, I've got clarity and I've put it in my pocket. Now what, Doc? Now what do I do? And I think that's the real sense, because everybody talks about these philosophical things. I mean, Stoicism. What is Stoicism? But philosophy. It is philosophy, right? It's this big hand, little map sort of thing. But how do you apply it to your life? And that's where the critical piece comes, because we can all sit back in our chair and visualize and have this clear picture of what we want, that target, that objective that we want to achieve. But how do we get there? So what I'll tell you is when you have that clarity in that target and that goal, then you can break down the steps to get there. That's why clarity is so important. The clearer the picture is, the easier it is to dissect it. Mm-hmm. So that you have implementation steps. Go back to my principle of vision, goals, objectives, tasks. Each of those build up, right? Tasks build up to objectives. Objectives build up to goals. Goals build up to vision. Mm-hmm. And when we have clarity in our vision, then we can set forth those goals. What's it going to take to get there? And I can set those up, those 2 or 3 things that help me achieve that vision. Because I have clarity in it, right? Because now I know, okay, well, if I take that part, I can focus on that part by doing these things. And then I take this other part over here and I can focus on that by doing these things. I can walk it all the way back to today, this afternoon, which is one of the things I always love to challenge people with is, hey, we're talking right now. I'm going to give you, when we're done talking, I'm going to give you a couple hours, but at 1300 today, what's the step that you're going to take to achieve that vision? Mm-hmm. And when you have clarity of your vision, you can dissect it down to those steps. And what's even better, this is where I get excited about a lot of things, but this is another one. Add that to the list. When you have that clarity, so we're not just backwards planning, but we can step and measure progress. Because you know what, if I knock that thing out, if I write that essay, if I call that person, those are my tasks that are steps to get to my vision. Guess what? Pat myself on the back. I took a step to achieving that vision I wanted to achieve. And that's a powerful place to be, because then you're building on success. Man, I'll digress just a little bit from to warfare. And when we talk about good old fashioned warfare, good old fashioned stuff, with the big fat commanders on the horses, Civil War, kind of from Civil War, well, even before that, really, even Napoleonic Wars and the Romans, if you broke through the lines, right? You think about the movie 300 and the Spartans, and they all had the shields up, and they had that hard line that they held. But you know what? You break through that first line, boom, and you pile everybody through. Whether it's the shields from Spartan, the trench lines in the Civil War, World War One, the line.
Testudo is what I was going to go with. The Testudo Romans, right?
Yeah, well, I was trying
to
think of what the Germans called their defenses in Northern Europe, and when we broke through that and how we blew through that. I wanted to say the Siegfried line, but I don't think that's it.
A little bit of scoreboard action there for you.
Yeah, well, but it's that once you get through that, then you pile on success. So that's the literal sense of it in warfare. But in life, it's the same thing. Damn, that worked good. Let me make another phone call. Damn, that essay turned out really good. Got some great comments back or whatever. Let me write another one. It's that kind of thing that you can do to increase your acceleration, your speed, your velocity, physics, your velocity to achieving your vision. That's what clarity gives you, is you backwards plan it out and know the steps to achieve it. And then as you take those steps, bam, yes, bam, yes. That's, damn, I feel like Tony Robbins, bam, yes. We start doing a chant and a jumping up and down here in a second.
Well, and I think this is only natural because when you and I talk, you generally bring in the military background. And of course, I'm naturally connecting that to rugby right away, because in rugby, you have the defensive line. And it's all about what you can do to create a small gap inside the defensive line. And then once you break through, the difference between being a good team, an average team really, and a great team is what you do after you break through that line. If you go and you keep attacking that same point, and you don't think to shift and start attacking where the next weak point is, you're gonna get stopped. The teams like, throw the All Blacks out there. The teams who are great, they shift that
Scotland?
point of contact.
You mean like Scotland?
Oh yeah, we're looking good. How about that Calcutta Cup? But when you break through, you have to have the clarity to know where to attack next. And so that's where it gets into the planning aspects, kind of like you were talking about earlier. That when you have clarity, when you understand a clear vision of where you need to be. So for rugby, I have the clear vision of where I need to be. I need to go touch down this ball in the try zone without dropping it forward, right? Simple enough vision at the end of the goal, at the end, right? Then you have your path to reach that vision. And when you have clarity, you can adjust to what's coming at you. I know I'm going to get too jargon heavy here for a second, but if you have a set piece, you have a scrum, and you throw it back to your fly half, and he gets lit up, and you lose 15 meters, you don't panic. You have the clarity to say, okay, slow ball, pick and go. Slow ball, pick and go again. Okay, hey, now we're going out wide. Now we're doing this. When you get through and you get fastball, you have the clarity to say, hey, what do we do when we hit fastball? Spoiler alert, we hit fastball again in a different spot, because before you can even react to me going over here, I'm going to go over there now. And you have that clarity to where you're not even thinking about it when you're out there. You just know, and you're going through that flow that we always talk about. When you have clarity, it helps to build that flow through life. And that rugby metaphor that confused, the half of our audience that doesn't know enough about rugby, but that goes the same thing for life. You and I were talking right before this about my schedule today, and how I was like, oh, I might have to cancel this lunch meeting with a good friend of mine who I coach rugby with. But the clarity of it is going back to like the Eisenhower Matrix, I think is literally what I referenced when we were talking. You have the clarity to say, does this have to happen right now? What does this really mean? What do I need from this? What do they need from me? And all of those different little aspects. And when you have the clarity to understand those individual pieces, those decisions come so much more easily. Because I can tell you, in the same way that I was like, oh, I could probably cancel this lunch meeting, I looked at 10 other things today and said, no freaking way am I canceling that, because I need it to move on and be successful.
Yeah, well, I got to go back to rugby and just tell you, the reason you understand that so well is because it's the same thing I just talked about in the military and how we would do those things. So that's why you understand the defenses so well, because you started learning that. That's how I taught attack in rugby. So
America, if you want to get better at rugby, hire some more Green Beret coaches. That defense is an offense. You're going to go next level stuff.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Well, let's bring it back, because like you and I love to do, we get into that philosophical discussion. Let's bring it back into these steps. Mm-hmm. How do I do this? So one of the things that's really and of course I'm going to use a little bit of that's a straight up special forces tool that we used to use, and they probably still do. It's called the Carver Matrix, and it's CARVER, just like it says, Carver. And what we would do is we would use that to break apart a target so that we would know how to attack that target and break it down into what we wanted to achieve. And really what Carver stands for isn't that applicable in this sense. But what I'm telling you is we would have to have that level of detail, that level of clarity of our target in order to break it down. Mm-hmm. The Carver was criticality, recuperability, vulnerability. Yeah, I skipped A. It'll come to me in a minute. And then, but really, so you think about that word as an acronym, as a guide, and that. But if you look at your vision in that same sense, that's the kind of, when you get that level of detail, then you get it down into that, because your vision isn't just one thing. Your vision is a group of things, right? And when we have clarity in our vision, we can break it down into those elements. That's our goals. And then as we develop more clarity, guess what? We can take those goals, which are still kind of fuzzy, right? We're kind of like, yeah, I want some more of this. And we take those more of this things and we break it down into Tango, Hotel, India, Sierra. And then there's our 4 objectives that supports that goal. And then we break it down again to tasks. That's the level, that's the implementation of the clarity. And what's really cool about it, when you write that down, when you write down that vision, you go, yeah, wow, this is kind of cool. And you kind of think about it and step back, and then you do that. You start to create that clarity around your vision so that you can break it down to have a plan to achieve it. Mm-hmm. Then you feel it more. It's more a part of you in what you do. And that means it's pulling you towards it. It's no longer this abstract thing. It has reality to it.
Right. Our third step last week when we talked through this was to begin your journey. Start moving towards your goal. Start moving towards your vision, the vision that you've created for yourself. And I think the interesting thing there is there's almost a cliche that comes out of it where people want to think that's okay, I created this vision, now I'm going to go get it. I'm just going to go get it. I'll be there. Hey, things are great. The reality of life is that things aren't going to happen overnight. Sometimes things take a very, very long time to happen. And what you have to focus on is really your overarching trajectory. If you are going through and you have a bad day, we all have bad days every now and then. What you want to look at is, how am I doing overall? Am I improving? If you have a crappy day, what was the win inside of it? Where's the positives that you can look at? And when you put that together and you start keeping track of that, you'll see yourself moving towards your vision. And it's that clarity that gives you that power to be able to do that. One thing that I do every day before I go to bed, actually, that's a lie. Every day when I finish up work, because I like to compartmentalize it and then go relax afterwards. If I did this before bed, I would never relax. Is I make myself write down In addition to reviewing, as much as you hate it, Dad, I do give myself a percentage on my to-dos every day. Even though I know you're an outcome guy, I'm still a to-do guy, and it's okay. But in addition to doing that, after I calculate my 85% completion, I go and I write out 3 losses, 3 things that I screwed up, not outside my control, inside my control, right? 3 things that I, Camden, screwed up. Next thing is 3 wins. 3 things that I, Camden, did right. It's all got to be inside your control. Don't make it some BS out there of something else. Ooh, my win is that the sun came up today. No. What did you do to actually move towards your goal? Then the next step past that is, if you're identifying losses and not doing anything, then you're not doing anything. So the next step is improvements. You look at it and you decide 3 improvements that I could do to be better. Now I'll let you in on a secret, Dad. I've written down probably 50, 60 improvements, maybe done 5 or 10 of them, but you're identifying them and then they're in the back of your mind and you think about them. Even if you're not doing it, you start thinking about it. And then further down the line, you'll start acting it. And then the last thing is it's about gratitude. And I make myself write 3 things that I'm thankful for every day. And when you start outlining those things, you get such a more clear picture of what your day looked like. And when you have the clarity of what your day was, you can see how it fits into your grander vision. And what it really comes down to, and this is, like we were talking about coaching my good friend Kenny over the weekend, that so many people fall into the headwind tailwind fallacy. They always feel what's blowing in their face, the wind blowing in their face. They never feel the wind blowing at their back. And that simple pattern that I just outlined to do at the end of your day is how you do that, is how you overcome that fallacy, because it makes you look at the tailwinds. I'm not a fan of the 3 gratitudes, I'll be honest, because I had losses today. And you need to look at those losses. You can't just be gracious. You have to look at the losses also. And so when you look at your losses, you look at your wins, you outline some improvements for yourself, and then you finish on gratitude. It gives you a really complete picture of what your day was. And then you can use that to move on to the next day. And you have that clarity of what was really effective, what wasn't effective. Was this really moving towards my goals? Because I'll tell you, sometimes that's my losses. My losses is, hey man, you worked your ass off today. What are you doing though? You worked your ass off doing nothing. And that's the kind of clarity you have to have though. What do you want? What do you not want? What is good for you? What's not good for you? You have to piece all of that together. And I think this is a really important tool to be able to do that.
Oh yeah, that's a great technique. I love that. And the 3s are an interesting thing. I've always been fascinated by that, and the human mind and how the human mind operates around 3. There's just tons of references towards it. Tony Robbins says, if you have one choice, one action to choose from, you don't have a choice. If you have 2, you have a dilemma. If you have 3, you have a choice. If you do what Camden just said, it's a really interesting thing. Our minds will get your little pen out and you write those things down. 1, 2, bam, on any of those, all 4 out of the 4 of those things, your mind will go bam, bam, first and second. And you'll go, damn, number 3. Yeah. I mean, seeing
I'm
it
laughing because that was me yesterday. 100%. Yeah. I wrote down the first 2 for each one and I stared at the page for 20 minutes.
So that's the power of 3. We talked about, it was a strategy we used in rugby, the power of 3, the principles of 3, and how it even applies right here, because our mind goes bam, bam. And then what's next? Oh, well, now I got to think, because our mind will go bam, bam on the first 2, on all 4 of those things. I guarantee y'all sit down and do that tonight. It'll go bam, bam on the first 2. And you get to that 3rd one and you go, oh yeah. I have seen it in hundreds of clients. I've seen it in other things. And it's just this power of 3 in our mind. Mm-hmm. And I'll just use one note to validate it. When they train Navy pilots, naval aviators, the brown shoes of the Navy, our military friends, what they train them to do when they're going in for a carrier landing is they train them in 3 options, and only 3 options, because the mind goes 1, 2, 3, bam, and it can react rapidly in 3 known options. But if they throw a 4th one in there, and believe me, they've tried over the years, they throw a 4th one in there and just the mind goes, I don't know what to do, because 4 is too many. 3 is this optimal thing for knowing what, for choices and selection, because our mind can choose and move through those. But in the same sense, when you flip it and you want your mind to regurgitate something, that's when you do a bit more thinking about it. Now, you could still have, I mean, it could still come to you pretty quick, but I guarantee that everybody sits down that does this, goes 1, 2, 3.
Yep. Oh yeah, I know. I totally agree. And I want to bring it back full circle, and I'm going to cheat a little bit. And this is my first time doing this. I'm going to go ahead and start the, what did I learn? Because it was something I just put together here right at the end. And I see that message popping up. How about that? We're working together on that same wavelength. But what it comes down to is when you review your day and when you do 3, not just 2, and you make yourself go through those things, it comes down to making you think. And I hadn't really put this together until we were going through now. And I'm looking at all of my notes about meditation, journaling, reviewing your day. All of that is really just making yourself stop where you are, disconnect from the outside world, and just really think. Because, and I guess this is a little, I've lost the word I was going to use there. But the idea is, when you stop and you make yourself think, the human brain is freaking powerful, man. That's like, it's a little odd, maybe people don't think about it like that, but this is a hell of a computer up here. And the problem is we let it work with too many tabs open. And what meditation and journaling and reviewing your day does is it makes you close out everything and just have that one tab open. And when you do that, you can do freaking amazing things. When you have all those tabs open, we can do a lot of different things, but you don't apply yourself near as well. And that's what I learned today, is how all of these different tools really serve the same purpose in the end, which is making you think and making you honestly reflect. And when you honestly reflect, you get clarity.
No, that's great. Yeah, I mean, honesty is clarity, right? I mean, because if you're being honest with yourself and who you are, what you've done, what you've accomplished, then you have better self-awareness, you have better clarity in who you are, right? That means that instead of pointing with my big fat finger on the map, I'm pointing with that pine needle on the map.
Yep.
That's what it means. So, and that there's a whole, I can go on forever on that one. But for me, it was just that reminder of why I've fallen in love with the game of rugby. A late bloomer in the game, all that sort of stuff. And now, in the next round of the Six Nations, I'm going to watch it with that reminded sort of sense of, oh yeah, that's what's going on. So looking forward to that in that aspect of watching the next round of the Six Nations.
Wales, we're coming for you.
That's right. That's right.
We get
Wales brothers.
that first Scottish Grand Slam in what, 25, 26 years, something like that, if not worse. Oh gosh. All right, we'll cut that part of the episode. Well, I got to jump on that before I get our outro here, because I just one page back in my notebook right here was my end of the day process from Tuesday. And first thing of gratitude, thank God for rugby.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Cam, run us out of the show, please.
Okay. Thank y'all again for listening to today's show. Special thanks to our sponsors, Verbi Virtual Events and Tribe and Purpose. Find your purpose, find your tribe. You can check out recent episodes of The Cam and Otis Show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, and check out a full archive at thecamandotishow.buzzsprout.com. The Cam and Otis Show is on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks again, and we'll see y'all next week.